But the man had tried to pray and knew that he could not, and some replied, "Study, my child, and you shall find him." But the more he read, the more confused he became, and the further he seemed from God. And some replied, "Forget your quest, my child. God is within you." But the man had tried to find God within himself and had failed. One day the man arrived wearily at a very small village set in the middle of a forest. Interesting symbolism there about the unconscious, perhaps. He went up to a woman who was minding some chickens, and she asked whom could he be looking for in such a small place, but she did not seem surprised when he told her that he was looking for God. She showed him to the rabbi's house. When he went in, the rabbi was studying. He waited a moment, but he was impatient to be off to the next village if he could not be satisfied. Then he interrupted, "Rabbi, how do I find God?" The rabbi paused, and the man wondered which of the many answers he had already received he would be told this time. But the rabbi simply said, "You've come to the right place, my child. God is in this village. Why don't you stay a few days? You might meet him." The man was puzzled. He did not understand what the rabbi could mean, but the answer was unusual. So he stayed for 2 or 3 days. He strode around and around, asking all the villagers where God was that morning, but they would only smile and ask him to have a meal with them. Gradually he got to know them and even helped with some of the village work. Every now and then he would see the rabbi by chance, and the rabbi would ask him, "Have you met God yet, my son?" And the man would smile, and sometimes he understood, and sometimes he did not understand. For months he stayed in the village, and then for years he became part of the village and shared in all its life. He went with the men to the synagogue on Friday and prayed with the rest of them, and sometimes he knew why he prayed, and sometimes he didn't. And sometimes he really said prayers, and sometimes only said words. And then he would return with one of the men for a Friday night meal, and when they talked about God, he was always assured that God was in the village, though he wasn't quite sure where or when he could be found. Gradually, too, he began to believe that God was in the village, though he wasn't quite sure where. He knew, however, that sometimes he had met him. One day, for the first time, the rabbi came to him and said, "You have met God now, have you not?" And the man said, "Thank you, Rabbi. I think that I have, but I'm not sure why I met him or how or when, and why is he in this village only?" So the rabbi replied, "God is not a person, my child, nor a thing. You cannot meet him in that way. When you came to our village, you were so worried by your questions that you could not recognize an answer when you heard it. Nor could you recognize God when you met him, because you were not really looking for him. Now that you've stopped persecuting God, you have found him, and now you can return to your town if you wish." So the man went back to his town, and God went with him. And the man enjoyed studying and praying, and he knew that God was within himself and within other people. And other people knew it too, and sometimes they would ask him, "Where can we find God?" And the man would always answer, "You've come to the right place. God is in this heart." Amen.
Amen.
Let's now turn over to page 520 as we stand kneeling. Elenu l'shabeach ha'adon ha'kol, latet gedula v'yotzer b'reshit, asher asam takenu li'achayet shemo, v'gor elenu l'hamli mal kuto. Shamayim v'yosed aretz, u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim ima'al, u'shchinatu zo b'govheinu onin, hu Eloheinu eino, emet malkeinu efesulato, kakatu b'torato, yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha, ki Adonai Elohim b'shamayim ima'al, v'aretz mitachat thee. Lord, trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your mouth. When false gods will vanish from our hearts, and idolatry cease forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your enchanted rule. When all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to your love. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name let them give honor. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory. As it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever. Before you, O God, we think of those who once shared with us the joys and burdens of life and who are no longer in our midst. On this Shabbat, we remember Neville Kulik, Des Muscat, Vera Pelosh, and Ivor York. And would anyone like to mention the name of a loved one or friend?
Irina Marcus.
Oh gosh. Yeah. How is her husband doing? His Malcolm's okay. Oh, it's been a long time. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love which continues to unite us with our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them which we will always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. But God grant consolation to those who are in sorrow, and light to those in darkness. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you and to praise your name. Yifkad Yifkadash Shemei Rabba, Ma'alma Divrach Irutei Yom Lich Malchutei, V'chayechon Yom Echon, V'chayei Nechol Beit Yisrael, V'agalah Bizman Kariv Imru Amen. Yehei Shnei Rabba Neborach Leolam U'Lamei L'Maya, Yitzbarach Yishtabach Yitzchar B'Turman V'Itnaseh, V'Tadar V'Taleh V'Talal Shemei Nekudashah B'Richu, Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, Dush B'Chata V'Nechamata, Tagad B'Alma V'Imru Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chayim Aleinu Yol Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Imrohav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu Yol Kol Yisrael, Yol Kol B'nei Adam, V'Imru Amen. Please be seated. Yom Zel Yisrael.
644.
644.
Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Tzvita v'kudim v'ma'asina, Shabbat u'rovatim lishmor v'kol shamayim, le'ara kafale, v'azet v'arucha, Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Endach lebavot le'uma shavura, lenafshotecha bot mishamayim tera, lenefesh mitzera, yasir anacha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Yashar v'rachta, Oto mikol yamim, B'sheshet chalita, Lechet olamim, Bo matzu adumim, Rashit u'vivta. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat Menucha. Yom Zel Yisrael, Ora v'Simcha, Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha. Shabbat, Shabbat Menucha.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Looks like downstairs we're still in the middle of the sermon, so
Yeah.
you're looking at 20, 25
You
minutes.
can go down to listen to the sermon if you really want, if you're in a hurry. Meanwhile, just a couple of announcements for me. As Frank alluded to, and what we know that this will be his last service before part 2 of your sabbatical.
I'll be back on September 5th.
Yep. And possibly you'll be practicing for your retirement come November. Do you want to share something that you'll be doing
Sure.
on the sabbatical?
On early Thursday morning, I'll be meeting a group of high school students and also their teachers in Berlin. They're from Göttingen, very bright and interesting group. I've also managed to connect with author Hermann Finke. You probably have all seen The Pianist. And do you remember towards the end when the pianist, the character Spielmann, is hiding in the ruins of what was the Warsaw Ghetto, and this German officer comes and gives him some pickles and some other things. And anyway, Hermann Finke wrote the biography of this officer who he learns saved about 60 people. So talk about expecting the unexpected. So we're going to engage with this writer who lives in Berlin. I'll also be meeting with a fellow from Spain whom I met at the Vatican conference where I spoke in March. And he's very interested in seeing, he works and lives in Berlin, and he's very interested in meeting these kids. My daughter Sarah will be coming with. This was all planned for Kabbalat Torah, but after the parents said those were good dates, then one by one they started backing out as they realized exams or whatever they need to do. But I feel committed to this school. I'm going anyway. And it'll be very interesting as a dynamic, in a sense, leading Germans through a different view of Berlin. Shortly after that, Kathy and I will be heading off to the ice-cold weather of southern India. The monsoons are late, so it'll be interesting to see if we actually see anything. We'll be going from Kochi. Actually, we'll land in, just forgot the name, Bangalore, and we'll spend one day there sort of recovering, and then we'll take a train west, and then we'll go to Kochi. There's several synagogues and churches and mosques and everything. And then we'll go all the way across to Chennai, and seeing all sorts of temples, and there are, what's that wonderful spice? You find it in chai masala, cardamom. Yeah. So, and also if we're lucky, we're going to a wildlife area. We might even see a tiger. Who knows? So that'll be really exciting. In August, I'll be attending a conference in Łódź, or Lodz, concerning the 75th anniversary of the deportation of Jews from the ghetto, and meeting with academics and some Christians there. And I may get, speaking of cold weather, I may get to the Middle East in August as well. The last time I was there in August, in 2015, it was over 50 degrees in the Jordan Valley. And when it got to be 45 at 11 p.m., we thought it was so cool. So it's all relative. So a lot packed in, various bits and bobs at UCL, planning for teaching in the autumn, and finishing redecorating the house and all that sort of stuff. So that's me.
So obviously Frank won't be bored whilst he's on sabbatical. Meanwhile, the show goes on here, and I just wanted to announce this Friday, yours truly will be taking the service. It'll be a combination of stand-up comedy and spirituality, if you could cope with that. And then the following Shabbat, we've got Rabbi David Stern.
Student rabbi.
Student rabbi, sorry, I beg your pardon. Student rabbi David Stern. I don't remember when he came here.
Yeah,
He was very imaginative, creative.
We'll have Korach's rebellion to deal with next Saturday.
Oh well, let's see what take he can make of that. And so Shabbat Shalom. So feel free to go home if you wish, or you can also take the musicians. They're always wonderful, but exceptional. Absolutely exceptional.
I reckon it's probably going to be 20 minutes or so.
There's no obligation to have to go
One of
downstairs.
the daughters reckoned it was about 10.
A Jewish 10 minutes.
So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Watch out for the pollens. This weekend's supposed to be terrible. Wash your hair every night. Hot washcloths. The whole bed. Change your pillowcases so you can rest.
My favorite color is mushroom.
kind of looking at the way they do
Thank you.
I also well, I mean, I did not do it. But I wasn't there yet, thinking of it. But I asked about it.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, but still doesn't
I do know the way around that, so yeah, definitely anyone who might potentially help.
Well, enjoy yourself.
I'm going to keep that on some artists, they like Van Gogh, they gender and whether people will buy. Some other artists, they keep to their general store, manage to make money, keep them up for the painter rather
I've actually been home for delivery.
Hopefully there are things like that learned in the last hour.
he did famous
You got my boring email.
Yeah. Very good. Well done.
There's a lot of books, and I think, there's also, I forgot to mention, there's an envelope, it's pretty visible with the leaf for retail, which we agreed we would put up when we do move, or if we don't move, and then we have stability. That's took notes on the books because I was under the gun. But, like, you already have books, why do you need more books? You already bought it, why do you need to buy another?
Anyway,
There were some pictures of
Shabbat Shalom. I got your place. Well done.
More eating.
take care.
Thank you.
Sarah. You take it. Yeah, end of October.
End of October, my goodness.
Yeah.
So who's going to be? We don't know yet.
It's 7. If I qualify by then, that's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, that was so amazing.
That's great. I would love to remember a community even. How long has he got now?
He's in the 30s. I think he has 2 more years. So, I mean, I'll be in touch with him.
Yeah.
Another way.
And we can prepare the ground for it.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
I will. I intend to.
Enjoy it.
Jacob was in this place.
Take care, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. And he only had a stone for a pillow.
Yep.
Absolutely. Sometimes you only know afterwards. You only realize afterwards in a subtle way. Something unusual happened. Absolutely.
Good. I will go now downstairs.
We went to see she had that for Dr. Livingstone.
Is it right? We're going to have to jump now. Photos.
And I said, It's arrangeable. Shall we see the fish first?
Yeah, I'll definitely see her.
The chopped fry.
Cheerio.
Cheers, Frank. Enjoy your sabbatical.
Thank you.
And thanks for everything. It's been,
Great.
I hope we'll see you after the 5th.
Yeah.
And enjoy India. It's fabulous.
Oh, I've been there before. I absolutely love
I
it.
thought you might actually.
I love it.
We did the north and we adored it.
I love the north. Yeah, Dharamsala and Amritsar and places like that.
Yeah. We went to Shimla actually, which is the hill station for the government.
Oh, fantastic.
Great. So we went from temperatures of 80 in Delhi to 6 in Shimla.
Yeah. You must go back.
We fully intend to.
Great. Great. Good. Oh, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye.
Good travel.
Thank
See you
you.
downstairs, Joy.
Just wanted to show you this. This is Nicky's.
Oh.
This is him making his speech to the
So
crowd.
why did you have the song Sheena today and not Rihanna?
Yes.
Really?
Sometimes the readings, well, half of our readings was in the Chumash, and I had to perform my cosplay. No, not. No, because the liberals don't know what they're true. That's why they're not. The Chumash, you know what it's going to be, so the liberals, and you have to write always in here.
Right.
And
I didn't know that, but now I do. Right, so it's 20 in the future.
Languagical is a company committed to working in harmony with its neighbours. And to this effect, I'm pleased to announce that our washboard, through peer-to-peer connection, is completely powered by our own green energy. I believe this to be the only plant of this nature currently operating in the UK. We've arranged transport today for anybody wishing to take a tour of the quarry. One of our staff will be happy to explain each step of the procedure and our process. We are lucky to have directors and technical staff with us today from Duo, who are the manufacturers of our washboard. Duo have been a great support with us from their experience and considerable knowledge of the industry. They have gone above and beyond the call of duty as a plant supplier, and therefore fitting that they be with us here today. Alex and all of Duo, Nanlogical Connection. It has been a long ride, with lots of twists and turns along the way. Today makes the start of a second stage of the journey. However, before we start this new phase, is it important to mention and thank a few key people that have been with us from our first steps. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank all the officers and staff from Peterborough County Council for their professionalism, conduct and the manner they have engaged with us and our consultants both pre and post plan. You are all a credit to your various departments. All staff and management from PDE and the consultants for their considerable efforts and support in the planning process. Dave Marsh, I don't know what I would have done without you from time to time. You always seem knew when to give me that extra mile. There is our highways construction team from Auction Sons and the design and technical support team from IDOC. Top quality and timely work achieved from both teams, with particular thanks to Hugh Gallagher from Escort and Alistair Clay from IDOC. Last but not least, the directors and shareholders at Nanlogical would like to thank Stephen Paul, our quarry manager, for putting together a fine team of local staff. You have all worked extremely hard to get us here today. Clayton and Cliff, in the way you've embraced the changes to your work roles and always delivered exceptionally high quality. The members of our Dartford team that have periodically been forming with their individual specialist skills, and Dr. Ian Shivers, head of our energy team, for his design and technical input. Every one of you is a credit to our company. So, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you a good friend of Nanlogical. Sir David Richards today as he first began.
It's okay.
It's not private. Sir Dave was responsible for the purchase and rebuilding of Wembley Stadium. He was the man that put the England team on the road, moving home games around the UK so that all had a chance to watch the national game being played locally before and during the construction of the new Wembley. He was chairman of the Premier League, chairman of the FA and sat on the England committee. And I had a privilege to call him my friend. Sir David Richards, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so
it's a great pleasure to be here and to help a friend achieve a fantastic ambition, because this man is exceptional in everything he does. And I'd just like to say the cooperation that he must have had with the woman is just fantastic. And I wish him every success in the future. And I wish that he brings employment and everything to your city, small village.
let's cut the tape.
It was pouring, it was the other Monday when it was torrential rain.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Gosh, you should be so proud.
Yeah, I am.
Well
Yes.
done.
Yes, he's it's been tremendous pressure, and I was worried about. I am still worried about him going to Iraq.
Yeah.
But they don't. He said, "Mum, it's all right."
He's got to live his life in an interesting way. And yeah, and he is ambitious. So
Very successful.
that's a present for you, Cav.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I don't know where this is going. It's, oh, well, that's another story. Thank you for that.
Adrian
Yeah.
waiting because I know they want to go.
Yeah, I'm getting mentioned about drinking substances. We're thinking of the hot